The deadly tattoo. The buzzing of the tattoo needle was the only sound in the studio. Steady, hypnotic, almost soothing. Rain tapped gently against the large window of Black Veil Tattoo, a popular downtown parlor owned and operated by the reclusive but brilliant tattoo artist, Eddie Harrow. Eddie's hands moved with practiced grace over the canvas of his client's skin, his attention fixed on the intricate geometric mandala design blooming on the man's forearm. He wore gloves, as always, but underneath them were 1,000 ink stains, souvenirs of 1,000 stories told in color. "Almost done," Eddie murmured. The client, whose name Eddie only knew as Jace, nodded silently. He was a tall, wiry man in his late 30s with sharp cheekbones and a coiled tension in his frame that hadn't eased since he walked in. He had requested the design be completed in a single session, no breaks, and had been unusually specific about the shapes involved. Eddie wiped away the fresh ink with a practiced swipe and leaned back. "That's it," he said. "It's finished." But Jace didn't move. Eddie frowned. "You all right?" Jace looked down at the tattoo, then up at Eddie with something unreadable in his eyes. "It's perfect," he whispered. Then Eddie Harrow fell backward off his stool, convulsing, eyes wide with panic, foam gathering at the corners of his mouth. His body hit the floor with a wet thud. Jace stood over him for a moment, watching. Then he turned and walked out into the rain, leaving the front door ajar, the tattoo studio silent, but for the gentle hum of the now idle needle. Detective Lori Monroe hated working in the rain. She hated the feel of her wet trench coat clinging to her skin, the squeak of her boots on slick linoleum floors, and the smell of city runoff clinging to everything. But what she hated most was dead artists, especially ones who dropped dead in the middle of a tattoo session. "Any signs of struggle?" she asked, stepping carefully around the forensic team at Black Veil Tattoo. "Nope," said Officer Brian Kellner, her partner. "Surveillance shows the victim, Eddie Harrow, collapsing while working on the client. The client left right after, no visible attack." "Client name?" "Jace something. Gave no last name, paid in cash. No ID." Lori walked over to the still form of Eddie Harrow. He was pale, eyes frozen in an expression of surprise and terror. The tattoo needle lay where it had fallen, buzzing faintly before someone had switched it off. "Autopsy results?" "Preliminary tox screen shows signs of poisoning," Kellner said. "Specifically, aconitine, monkshood." "Aconitine?" Lori blinked. "That stuff's not easy to get, and it doesn't kill instantly. Unless it's directly introduced into the bloodstream," Kellner replied grimly. Lori turned toward the fresh tattoo on the client's arm, now photographed and printed on the forensic team's tablet. The design was intricate, a radial mandala with sharp, spiked edges, not unlike a compass. But in the center was something odd. Letters. Tiny, almost microscopic. Hidden in the inked filigree was a circular sequence of runes that spelled out in Latin, "Mortem portat artifex." The artist carries death. "Lori," Kellner said, looking at her, "we might be looking at something ritualistic." 2 days later, Lori was at her desk flipping through Eddie Harrow's sketchbooks. Hundreds of designs, dragons, skulls, flowers, portraits, but none like the mandala Jace requested. That one was unique. And the runes? Definitely not Harrow's usual work. She called in Dr. Annika Vale, a symbology expert from the university. Annika adjusted her glasses and pointed at the printed tattoo design. "This isn't just a mandala, it's a cipher wheel." "A what?" "A cipher wheel, used to encode messages. Each ring aligns with symbols or letters. This design, it's a puzzle." "A puzzle that killed someone," Lori muttered. Annika smiled grimly. Perhaps it wasn't meant to. Perhaps it was meant to send a message. Together, they deciphered the rings. At the top of the mandala, aligned perfectly with the outer symbols, was a phrase. When the sun hits the lion's eye, blood will spill in stone. What does that mean? Laurie asked. Annika hesitated. There's an old legend. A group of exiled aristocrats in the 1600s supposedly created a secret society. They used ciphers hidden in art and tattoos to communicate. Their emblem was a lion with a sunburst eye. They believed tattoos could be both art and map. So you think Eddie was killed for making one? I think he unknowingly completed a map someone else started, and someone didn't want him figuring out what it pointed to. Laurie dug deeper. 3 months prior, a retired historian named Lyle Kent had been found dead in his home. Heart attack, the report said. But his journals told a different story. His last entry read, "I finally have the cipher. The tattoo is the key. Mortem portat artifacts. I'm meeting with the artist tomorrow." The artist? Eddie Harrow. The connections were too strong to ignore. Laurie traced Jace's payment back to a burner account linked to a shipping container business on the docks. Surveillance caught a grainy image of Jace loading crates into a truck 2 nights before Eddie's death. In one frame, Laurie saw something chilling: tattoos covering Jace's own forearms. Not art, not decoration, coordinates. Each design etched in detail with a specific location, many pointing to abandoned churches, crypts, and forgotten tunnels beneath the city. Laurie and Kellner visited one of the locations, an old cathedral turned ruins. In the center, beneath the broken stained glass window depicting a lion and sun, they found a stone slab, recently disturbed. Beneath it, bones, dozens, and in the dirt, a crumpled sketch, a mandala, identical to the one Eddie had tattooed, only this time written beneath it. "The blood of the artist reveals the final gate." "They're following a path," Laurie whispered. "Using tattoo artists as mapmakers. Eddie was the last key." Days passed. Laurie went back to Black Veil Tattoo, now closed and under investigation. She stared at the empty chair where Eddie had died, at the dried ink still lingering on the tray. She lifted his sketch pad again. A torn page. Beneath it, hidden in the binding, she found a folded note, addressed to E. It was from Eddie. "Laurie, if you're reading this, I figured it out too late. The design wasn't mine. It was brought to me by the man named Jace. He knew too much. Told me the tattoo had to be exact. I think this design opened something. A door? A vault?" He wouldn't say, but he was terrified. Not of being caught, of being followed. "If anything happens to me, follow the lion's eye. Look beneath the ink. The truth is deeper." "Eddie." Laurie closed the notebook, her heart racing. A week later, the police raided the shipping container at the docks. Inside, maps, surgical tools, tattoo inks, some laced with traces of aconitine, and one final clue: a digital recorder. The last entry was Jace's voice. "I thought the tattoo would be enough. I thought once the map was complete, they'd leave me alone. But they want more. They say there's another gate beneath the city, under stone carved with lions. The artist's blood was just the beginning. If you find this, burn everything." They never found Jace. But weeks later, a homeless man in a tunnel beneath the old courthouse was found with a tattoo on his chest, half completed, in the shape of a lion's eye. The ink was fresh, Eddie Harrow's style, and whoever had started it never finished. Every design tells a story, but some stories were never meant to be inked.